film podcast. I am Matt, that is Chuck, and this is episode 71. Look out, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's DC's fourth attempt at creating a cinematic universe. From the ashes of the Snyderverse and the unexpected loins of Peacemaker, this is James Gunn's Superman. He's giving us our first glimpse at what's to come in the DCU. And the question on my mind, the question on everybody's mind is, are we as audiences ready for another 15-year cinematic universe commitment? We're going to talk all about it in our featured review. We're also going to bid farewell to an acting legend. And we're also going to talk about some more blockbusters in the watch list. So do look forward to that. If you have not already, please do hit that like button. Please do hit that subscribe button. It lets us know kind of how we're doing at the channel. But otherwise, Chuck, anything else we need to get into before we get into the meat of things?
Something I just kind of noticed for finally our background loop video is in color coordination with the movie we're talking about today.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just a weird little thing I noticed.
Yeah.
But no, we really have taken a very strange path to today. 5 years ago, this is not what I thought we'd be getting from a Superman movie. And yeah, it's been a long time coming for what we got. And I can't wait to talk about it. First and foremost, though, we need to say goodbye to our good buddy, Michael Madsen. He was just a very ever-present face in cinema, I guess starting in the late 80s, early 90s. And, the quality of the films he was in kind of fluctuated, as his career kind of petered out. But the guy was fucking prolific. He is in more movies than you could ever watch. Sometimes pumping out 6 or 7 credits, in a given year. More often than not in straight to video, DVD, or streaming fodder. But every once in a while, his buddy Quentin Tarantino would throw him a bone and get him at least a bit part in one of his projects that was, that made you go, oh yeah, there's my guy. There's the dude, who I loved in Reservoir Dogs. But he's more than just Tarantino. I recently rewatched Free Willy just because he was in it. You know what I mean? I heard he died, and I was like, what else has this guy been in? And that's a movie that most people might not think of. But then, of course, there's Thelma and Louise. He plays the husband to one of those ladies. I forget which one. But more than anything, he just had this presence on screen that no matter how inconsequential his role was, there was power there, which is why so many bargain bin productions threw some shekels his way so they could have him on their I call it a poster, but just on the cover of their DVD. People, he was a name. And it's very, very sad that we've lost a one of those guys, one of the great dependables. At least in the moments he was in, he was giving you his all. He didn't quite make every bad movie great. As Tom Cruise, you don't look for, no, I'm getting it backwards. Because the Tom Cruise method is find a great movie. Don't worry about the part. So he went the opposite route.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks. This guy, in the 90s, he rode that Reservoir Dogs wave for quite a bit. He was in, like you said, Free Willy, Thelma and Louise, Donnie Brasco, Species,
That's
the
right.
Species movies, yeah. And so he was riding that wave, and then he got into the direct to DVD stuff, and I found a quote from him actually where he talks about that. He talked about kind of the last 25 years of his career, and the quote was basically this. He said, "They bought my face to put on a DVD box with a gun. What people don't always understand is that I've established a certain lifestyle for my family back in the days of Species and Mulholland Falls. I wasn't about to move my 6 kids into a trailer park. When people offered me work, and it wasn't always the best, I still had to buy groceries and put gas in the car." So, he was very aware that what he did he didn't just do for art, but he also did for money. He also did to provide for his family, which is obviously something that, I can respect, especially when somebody's that overt about it and
Yeah.
they're not like delusional. They're not deluding themselves that they're in some like high art direct DVD stuff. But yeah, I mean, even more recently though, he did appear in some pretty interesting stuff. Like, I mean, not I guess not that really recently, but he had a really cool bit part in Sin City as Bruce Willis's cop partner. I think he has like one or two lines in that movie, but he makes them really memorable. He has this line basically about when Bruce Willis's character is basically having a heart attack. He says like something to the effect of like, take a breath, Hardigan, slow down and think straight. You're pushing 60, you got a bum ticker. And I always remembered that line for some reason. And then of course, I don't know if you've ever played the Dishonored games, but he played the villain in those
Oh,
games.
really?
Dodd, yeah, he played the villain in the Dishonored video game series, and yeah. So I mean, he was in a couple of nice things even towards the end of his career, and even more recently as uh, he had a little bit part in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? He was in
Yeah.
that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
the, I think it was in the, in DiCaprio's show when he rolled like
yeah.
Bounty Law, when he shows up with a body and he's like, yeah, this is so and so. I think he's worth a lot of money. Where's the sheriff at? And he's like, well, the sheriff is that boy's daddy. Basically, like he just had a little stinger of a moment, but you know, it like all of the cameos in that movie, they were deliberate and they were perfect for the people who did them. Um, yeah, and voice acting. It's more than just Dishonored. Like I'm pretty sure he was also in a Grand Theft Auto game or two, and
Yep.
things like that. So
Chronicles of Narnia.
that dude,
Yeah.
that blew my mind when I
Yeah.
found out that he was the voice of Mogrim. I was like, "Are you serious?" But it didn't register. Like I didn't recognize him. Because even when I
Me
saw it,
neither, yeah.
yeah, when I was like, "Good for you, dog." Like you did it. But
Mhm.
yeah, but naturally, my first exposure to the man was as Mr. Blonde. He's the perfect, person for that role, and just it's really too bad. This is one of the great crimes of all of Tarantino's unfulfilled, projects he's teased us with over the years, that we never got the Vega Brothers movie. That would have been
Mm.
so much fun if they had actually been able to pull that off. If he had had enough cachet to make that happen, that would have been a lot of fun. But
Mhm.
we salute you, sir. We'll miss you, but we always have your movies.
Yeah.
Moving on to a really quick watch list today. You were able to see the latest monstrosity from the Jurassic Park industrial complex.
Mhm.
Is it at least worth your time as a shit show, or is it actually decent?
It's, yeah, that's kind of what I was in the mood for. It was sort of a big, dumb summer blockbuster. And I guess that's sort of what I got, I suppose. And like any 90s kid, I love the original movie. And I think there are like fleeting moments of greatness in both The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, but they are very fleeting. Um, but no, this is a bad movie. This is a very if that's what you're looking for. This is a bad movie, and I will say one thing they got right was they are completely shutting the door on the other Jurassic World trilogy, and this movie has nothing to do with those. None of the characters from those appear. We can only really surmise that those movies did happen in this world, but they never reference them. Um, but unfortunately, what we get is not much better than Chris Pratt training velociraptors. And like the justification for this movie, oh man, it's so stupid. It's like they're making a heart disease medication, a pharmaceutical company is, and in order to like synthesize it, they need the blood from three different dinosaur species from the island. And so that's kind of the setup. It's all nonsense, but I don't know. What's even more nonsense is the casting of Scarlett Johansson in this movie as the lead, because it's very obvious the amount of decision making that went into her casting went nothing beyond like we need an A-list actress, and that's it. That's all because we're supposed to believe she's like this ex special forces badass, like Blackwater mercenary that like works these morally gray operations for money, and I don't know. I never bought it. Like I'm sorry, but Scarlett Johansson is a 40-year-old short, like 5'3" woman with like no real like physique to speak of beyond I don't know average. And on an acting level, you can tell the amount of preparation that she gave for this role only included looking at the number of zeros on her paycheck. You know, that's like the prep that went into like just the way that she holds a gun and like the the amount of credulity that is being stretched when she is like spouting like military jargon. It's just like I don't believe you. I don't
Yeah.
believe anything you're saying. I don't believe anything you're doing. And otherwise, one of the greatest sins for me, like one of my personal pet peeves as a like movie watcher, is when you can see the screenwriting like on the screen. You can see the script rewrites on the screen. You can see like the behind the scenes machinations. And you see that all over this movie where they're like we need a scene where Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali endear themselves to the audience. So let's just have them randomly talk about like their dead child and like their dead mom for like 5 minutes and then never speak of it again. Like never ever speak of it again. Or like um like, oh, we need a reason why the dinosaurs get out from their cages in the first place. Okay, what can we think of? Oh, I know. There is a employee at the facility who's eating a Snickers
Yeah,
bar,
I've
and
heard about that.
the Snickers wrapper gets like caught in like the ventilation system, and for some reason all of the cages open. That causes all the cages to open.
What an
It's so
awful fail-safe
stupid.
design. Like,
Yeah,
this is
it's
supposed to be
so
a
dumb.
trillion-dollar enterprise, and this is how they're doing it? Are you kidding?
Yeah, and so it's stuff like that where you can just see like you can see why certain stuff happens. You can see the script being written. You can see you can see the notes from the studio execs like on the screen, and it's just like it's really distracting. But here's what I'll say that's good about the movie. This is a movie that was directed by Gareth Edwards, and that gave me a little bit of hope because I really like the creator, and I thought the 2014 Godzilla was, serviceable. And so what does Gareth Edwards get you as the director? And what that gets you is really good like spectacle, really good action set pieces, really well directed action set pieces. And so that's kind of what you get from this movie on like sort of the good column. And you've probably seen in the trailer there's that like aquatic one where they're on a boat. That's really good. There's another one where a T-Rex is chasing after some people in a raft in like a white water raft, and that's really good. And so that's what you get from Gareth Edwards. That's the good part about this movie. And so yeah, I mean, go see it if you want some big dumb blockbuster. Otherwise, it's it's not worth it at all. It's not good. It's in the vein of the other Jurassic World movies more so than it is like any of the other older movies. And so
Yeah.
that's what you're gonna get. But yeah.
Because from the sounds of it, because like that raft sequence being chased by a T-Rex, that's from the
Mhm.
novel. That is like the last like
Oh, that's right.
little
Yeah.
thing
Mhm.
that was in the source material that never quite made it to screen, and they've put it in this one. They're like, hey, we finally got something we could use. And just from the sounds of it, they have mined this thing down to like the bedrock. They can't get
Mhm.
anything else out of it unless they go cuckoo bananas, which they've thought about and been too chicken shit to do. Like they were teasing us with all those concept art, and I think I've said this before, but we need to have like human dino hybrids. Like if
Mhm.
we're like this needs to go, and maybe they could go in that direction since this is like a pharmaceutical company that's messing around, like because yeah, they're it's just a retread of Deep Blue Sea. They're just souping up
Yeah.
animals and then trying to extract some nebulous MacGuffin out of them to cure cancer, or heart disease. And the only, and if they had and it did like do they succeed in their mission, or is it all just a complete wash and it's just a story of survival? Because if they succeed, then yeah, you could say, oh, we've been giving people all these treatments that we lost all those people to get from those dinos, and now people are acting kind of weird, like, and
Yeah.
then it could turn into like an apocalypse movie, and
Well,
maybe at that
it
point it could
could.
get cool, you could get
It could.
interesting
It totally
again.
could. Because here, if anybody doesn't want to hear any spoilers for this movie, mute your video for about 30 seconds. But basically, what you're saying could happen because what happens at the end of this movie is instead of giving the cure to the pharmaceutical company for the money, Scarlett Johansson decides to make it open source, and she's gonna give the cure
Oh,
to everybody, and she's not gonna make any money from it, but she decides to do the right thing, and
oh
so that's
no.
what happens, and so what you're saying could happen because presumably then now everybody, whether or not you can afford it or not, everybody's gonna get this cure for who has heart disease, who needs it, and so there could be I don't know, some sort of mutations that make all these people turn into the human dinosaur hybrids. I don't know.
That's kind of neat. That could be neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie was not one I was going to rush out to see,
Yeah.
and hopefully something new can be born from the Detrus, because I'm sure this is going to bomb in the terms that it's not going to be a $1 billion movie again. Like
Mhm.
we're not in that realm anymore. They should almost set their sights lower. Go maybe like more in the vein of Alien Romulus, which wasn't
Yeah.
blow your bank account expensive to make, but was a throwback in a lot of ways. But moving on in the watch list here, because we're champing at the bit to talk about Superman. But over the last like weekend, um, November saw Sonic and Knuckles and Tails on like the Prime Video feed of options, and said, I want to watch that. And then we watched all three of these Sonic the Hedgehog movies in reverse. We watched Sonic 3, Sonic 2, and then Sonic 1. That's just how it happened. But like I hadn't seen Sonic 3 yet, and in experiencing this trilogy in its complete form for the first time, it blows my mind that this exists. That they
Yeah.
made this, and they were so unabashed in embracing just like the goofy lore that this franchise has. And but at the same time, you got to credit like everyone involved in it, like from the human characters like James Marsden, to the his deputy who's just like there for a scene or two every movie. But then of course Jim Carrey, like the guy really could retire. He's given us everything he can give us after these three movies, in terms of his career, because he plays a dual role in the third one. He plays Dr. Robotnik's grandfather as well.
Okay.
And they did some really fun things like that. You maybe have seen like the laser room dance sequence that they do, because they wear these special suits where it doesn't matter if they break the lasers. So they're just like, okay, we're just gonna goof off for like 3 minutes and have this really bizarre coordinated dance sequence with two Jim Carreys. It's
Can I say hi to Matt?
really quick. We're talking about Sonic.
What did November think of Sonic?
What did you do? You like Sonic? What did you think of Sonic?
I like Sonic 1.
What's your you like the first one? But I thought you liked the part where Knuckles, Tails, and Sonic race each other. You know, when he's racing his friends.
I like that one.
Okay, yeah, that's
What did she
Sonic
say?
3. She likes that
Okay.
one. That's Sonic
Okay.
3. That's the first one we watched. So to her, that's Sonic 1.
Yeah.
I
Well,
want
it's see that's
Sonic.
what blows my
Okay,
mind
well, go ask
is
Mama.
like
Tell her it's on Amazon.
why I don't understand why Sonic is as popular as it is right now. Like or still I should say because you know there hasn't been as far as I know. I mean, I don't play the Sonic video games, but there hasn't been a good Sonic game in a long time. And
Since the
like
Dreamcast, since Sonic Adventure 2. That's like the last good
yeah,
one. Yeah.
it's like why are kids so obsessed with Sonic in the modern day, like modern times? I understand it in like the Genesis era, like when we were kids, but I just don't understand the appeal. Is it just the designs of the characters, the color, how colorful everything is? I really don't understand it.
Yeah, it might just come down to that. Like in his what was appealing in the 90s is still appealing now. And it
Mm.
doesn't matter if the product is middling. The games were cheap and affordable compared to a Mario game, and it was and more available. You could get them on all the consoles. So I think that may have been a part of it, in that like more like he kept on getting exposed to the youth, of every generation, as it were.
Mhm.
And because mom and dad, oh, I could just buy a Sonic game. I liked Sonic. My kid will like Sonic too. Got to go fast. But the weird little lore bits, like his obsession with chili dogs, I don't know where that comes from. I don't
Yeah.
read the comic books or anything like that, because like that's the other part of it. Like, and I don't know how much of it is informed by the comics, but they have their own fascinating little history, just the behind the scenes behind that. And like there was like the writer of the Sonic comics like basically created it on his own and just got really nuts over time, to the extent where they were like the corporate ownership were like, how the fuck do we disentangle ourselves from this guy? Because he had like some kind of weird control over the comic book version of Sonic that it's amazing that they gave him license for. But
Mm.
as far as the movies go, I don't think we're ever gonna get another one. But I don't know. I think I want more Sega movies, man. Like, cause
Mhm.
you know how like with like in like the Sega like credit like the title credit at the beginning of the movie, where they
Mhm.
just show you this montage of all of their games, from the 90s, where you're just like, oh, like the nostalgia bomb hits you every time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Golden Axe could make a good movie, but fucking Streets of Rage could. You could make a great
Yeah.
movie out of Streets of Rage if you do it like the Raid style, something like that. And we're never gonna get a Moonwalker. I guess technically we have a Moonwalker movie already, but yeah, we're never gonna be going there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I only have seen the first Sonic, and so I I was not interested in seeing the other two. And um but I don't know, maybe someday. I think what are they on? Are they on Prime? Is that where
They're
you
kind of
can
all
find them
over the
these
place.
days?
That's where I found
Okay.
them. I think Paramount is like their real home. That's where you can
Okay.
see the Knuckles miniseries too. I haven't seen that,
That's right.
but all I know about the Knuckles miniseries is that he's like at like a Jewish family, and he's eating with them, and he's like relating to them, because the echidnas have also been genocided or something like that. Yeah,
Okay.
but Idris Elba is great as Knuckles,
Yeah.
and so is Keanu Reeves as Shadow. Like, the man doesn't
Mm.
even have to try, he just nails it. Just in terms
Yeah.
of all the pathos that's going on. But as far as
Yeah.
franchise adaptations, it's harmless, it's cheap, it's disposable. Like, if I were in my feels enough, maybe I'd even shed a tear, but it hasn't happened yet.
Mm.
What
Sure.
did make me shed a tear, though, in moments,
Mm.
was the movie we're going to talk about today, because this is not like I kind of alluded to. This is not the movie I thought I was going to get 5 years ago. Because for some reason, Superman, the character who kicked off the whole comic book superhero movie craze 50 some, maybe 50 years ago, maybe not quite, has been a tough nut to crack. They haven't been able to get it right with great frequency. And, when they've attempted with, Bryan Singer and Zack Snyder, it succeeded to degrees, but never to the level befitting a character like Superman. And so they were really coming up with some wacko ideas before the Discovery Warner Brothers merger that happened. Because we were going to have a Ta-Nehisi Coates written Black Superman movie starring Michael B. Jordan at one point. That was the plan. Produced by J.J. Abrams, because that was part of his big, he had like a big deal before he made nothing with it except for a show that got canceled after one season, in Duster. And so the task eventually was given to our friend James Gunn. And he, based on the PR push, he was really working hard to make people believe again. He knew the uphill battle he was dealing with. He had seen the complete failure, that was the Zack Snyder DCU in terms of actually making a cinematic universe people wanted to see. And he knew that superhero fatigue was a problem. And so how do you overcome that? Is the question. And his approach seemingly, has been to just forego a lot of the trappings and tropes that we expect from a first time at bat movie for, a mega franchise like this. There is no origin story. He's just dropping you right in the middle of something. It's already feeling very lived in. Things are established that we would expect to be. And it really is, it's unbridled in a way that we don't see from franchise vehicles like this. Comic book fans likely won't need to have their hand held so much. And for the most part, as a comic book fan, as someone who got into it just by picking up random comics and just reading what was in front of me and hungering for more and wanting to learn more, the feeling is very much like that. This is like picking up a glossy off of a comic book store shelf and flipping through it. You're taken for a ride. You may not understand every reference, but the hooks are in you and you're ready to jump with it. Cheese eating movie critics and popcorn munching, blockbuster theater goers may not have as much, runway to take flight like the rest of the comic book fans would, which might explain some of the scathing reviews this movie has. But I think I don't want to say the dumb line, well, this just wasn't made for them, because that's not true. He still sought to make a movie that could appeal to anybody. And he at least trusted that even an audience that didn't know who Metamorpho or Mr. Terrific were could still get into it and still be along with the ride if they were willing to let go of their fucking baggage, whatever it might be. Like a movie critic hates superhero movies implicitly, doesn't really give a shit. An average moviegoer might be bored with superhero movies and feel like they have nothing more to give them and might skip it and wait for streaming. But this is such a dizzying and like balls to the wall superhero movie and a comic book movie first and foremost. That's what I think gets missed a lot, especially in the Marvel formula. They forget that these are comic books. And a part of that is being like, who the fuck is that guy? And then being given a reason to care about them and want to find out more about them. That's what Gunn succeeded at to a great level, with Guardians of the Galaxy and with his Suicide Squad movie. And now he's just playing in a sandbox that has Superman in it. So people like Guy Gardner and Hawk Girl, Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, they all get to be in a mainline movie and they're not just window dressing. They actually contribute to the texture and the patter of the world. They are like the God, like when Guy Gardner calls him Big Blue during their confrontation, like it worked. And you would think you would expect that it wouldn't, but it does. Like it's communicating something in a way that most movies wouldn't even bother trying to. And so like this movie's being accused of certain failings that I just don't see. Those failings definitely apply to other superhero movies, but not to this one. It's overcoming those issues so long as you're willing to look up and get lifted up right along with it. Like it's busy. Yeah, there's a lot happening in this fucking movie, but at the end it has clarity that leaves the room for so many things. Like Gunn has built the theme park. The rides are there waiting for us. We just have to hop on board, basically. And yeah, accept the fact that these are a theme park ride, but it has heart beating. It has a heart beating in its chest. It has some things actually happening in its brain. All of the things that Zack Snyder got bogged down on with his like really sci-fi interpretation of the character, they're there in elements, but they're contextualized in a universe that already knows who Superman is already grappling with who he is. And the long and the short of it is I've never been more ready for something like this, and I'm so glad that we got it. What's your takeaway, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, much in the same vein. Just for a little bit of context, in case anybody didn't know who's watching, I am also like a lifelong comic fan. I go to the comic book store every week. I mostly read DC. I read some Marvel, but it's mostly DC. I just think they have the more interesting characters and the more varied art style between their different books. And so from that perspective, this is the version of Superman that I want in the movie that I want him in. And a lot of people have said that this is kind of a Silver Age comic come to life. And I do think it has kind of that really, really refreshing, like almost unfashionable earnestness of a Silver Age comic. Everybody these days is so glib, and it's so uncool to be earnest. It's so uncool to like be genuine. And in that respect, this movie is. It's very genuine, it's very earnest. And I love that about it. And I also would compare it to the video game Batman Arkham Asylum in its sort of structure, in its sort of the superficial level, wherein it's taking place over a condensed timeline. That whole game takes place over the course of a night. This one takes place over roughly the course of a week, I think. It's a very lived-in world. You're coming into this world, everything's already established, and then also there's a certain confidence in its usage of like side characters, in that we're going to put all these side characters in front of you, and we're going to just trust you as the audience member to know who these people are, or to at least get on board with it enough that you're fine with it lasting an entire length of a movie. And so yeah, I mean, I really love that about it. And to try and relate this to the experience, or to try and relate the experience specifically to a comic book rather than a video game, let's say, I agree with you. It's like picking up a single issue floppy in a comic shop, where you're going to get some sort of single issue narrative, but you're also going to get the larger story arc, whatever event is going on, in the larger world or something like that. And so my biggest worry with this movie, though, was, and I've said this, I've been on record saying this in previous podcasts, like when the trailer came out and we talked about that and stuff, that I didn't think James Gunn was going to get the assignment. I thought that he was going to essentially make Superman Guardians of the Galaxy edition, where it was going to be irreverent, it was going to be a laugh riot, it was going to be filled with like pop culture references. And then most of all, it was going to lack gravitas, like the gravitas of Superman. And I would say on most of those accounts, I was wrong. I think that he gets it. I think James Gunn gets it, and I'm glad he gets it. And I think as he sort of transitions from his role of director into sort of this more like Kevin Feige like shepherd of DC films, I really look forward to a sort of tonally varied take on the various corners of the DC universe because I think he understands that. I think he gets that these can't all be the same thing like the MCU is. They can't all be the same bland, color palette and look and stuff like that. And so, yeah, really, really promising start to this universe, and I really enjoyed myself.
And I guess briefly, I just kind of want to touch on that because this like the choices for how things are visualized. You are like the camera seems to like hug right on Superman at times in a way that it didn't before. Like Snyder was all about having those wide shots of Superman flying, and just seeing like his jet trail as he cut through the air. But in this one, when he's jetting around the world, at super speed, the camera's like right on his face typically, and I don't know, like you're just thrust right along with it, and at the same time, like it embraces the whole widescreen aesthetic, the oneers. There's some pretty memorable splash page equivalent sequences in there, but yeah, it has like a feel like, yeah, and just like the stuff like the small moments like that, like a Marvel movie would never do something like that, to like take the time that we're gonna have a slow motion, we're gonna have all kinds of emotion built into it. It's not just gonna be for the sake of a punch being thrown. We're gonna do lots of focus ramping, and like I don't know, like there was so much more intentionality in it. Marvel would just be like, we just need a shot of an angry crowd. Let's have just a wide of it. It'll last 3 seconds, and we're gonna move on to the talking and whatever scripted CG sequence we've had in the can for like 3 years. Like it's this feels more personal and intimate. Snyder never had the capacity to get to, as much as I love Man of Steel. But in comparing those two movies, they're trying two very different things. And in my mind, they both succeed. But if we're going to get butts in the seats and actually make sure that that something actually gets built that can compete with Marvel, this is the only way to do it. But it's different. It's offering an alternative that I don't think Marvel is, not to like make this about fanboyism, and I'm really not. They're not ready to compete like with this kind of an approach. They lost a golden goose by letting him go, and one has to ask the question: did he jump ship the way he did because they really didn't stay loyal to him during his social media cancellation? Like they had to come crawling back to him to do Guardians 3. Do you think he took that personally?
I think a little bit. I mean, because I mean he did Guardians 3. Guardians 3 was after his like attempted cancellation and then his sort of comeback, right?
Yeah.
Like that was all. So like I mean, I'm guessing he, went and sort of begrudgingly did Guardians 3. I mean, I'm sure they probably threw a bunch of money his way, but I'm sure that at the end of the day, the choice to jump ship probably was partly because, there was still some bad feelings there. And then also, I think the opportunity too, because over at Marvel, I mean, James Gunn was the guy who did the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But at DC, James Gunn is literally, he may become the curator of their entire universe. He is the curator. So I think that, obviously it's a substantial it's a substantial boost to his personal like cachet as a person in the film industry. When you become someone like Kevin Feige or someone like Cat. I mean, that's what he's going to become. He's going to
Yeah.
become the Kevin Feige of the DC films. He's going to become the Kathleen Kennedy of DC films. And so that was probably pretty attractive to him also, I would say.
And what do we make of Corin Sweat? Did he
Yeah.
do a good job? Because I had concerns going in that were very quickly put to rest. Like I found him utterly convincing. And
Yeah, same.
yeah,
I mean, though, I think the only thing I had seen him in, and I would assume probably the only other thing you had seen him in was X, right?
yep,
Like,
yeah, that
or
Pearl, yeah,
Pearl, yeah, Pearl, as like the projectionist at the movie theater, and so yeah, I was like, okay, this is interesting. I mean, at least he's an unknown. I like when they cast unknowns, and so yeah, I loved his take. I'm just not a fan of like separating Clark Kent from Superman by basically making them two different characters, like completely. You make Clark Kent into this sort of doofus ultra klutz, and then you make Superman into this infallible like ultra Chad, and I hate that. I just hate that representation. It's almost as if you're watching two separate characters, and there's nothing in your brain that can really like put them. It doesn't even seem like it's the same character, it's the same guy. And so his interpretation is more like Clark and Kal-El are mostly the same person, and he's not acting like two different people because his identity is protected by these hypno glasses, which I loved also. I love that whole little aspect. So he doesn't have to do the whole like I'm gonna be two separate people thing. And yeah, and you see sort of his flaws, you see the chinks in his armor. Um there's that sort of that really extended interview scene with Lois where he's sort of giving his opinions on things and she's kind of rebutting everything he says, and it kind of culminates in him sort of like losing his cool almost, where he's like,
yeah.
people were going to die. And I just loved that moment. I love that line read. I thought it was a really good take that they put there. And yeah, I loved him. But yeah, what did you think?
Well, that scene in particular, when we were just hearing the scuttlebutt and rumors about this movie, people acted like that scene was going to be the great failing of this movie. It's the center and heart of it ultimately, and like that conversation needed to happen because it paves the way for like the larger, you know I guess just the discussion of the realities of metahumans existing in a world like this, and the questions of like, do you intervene, like who are you to intervene? Did you ask the president if it was okay? Like, are you actually governed by the laws of the United States? Like, it's like, do you care about that? No, I don't. Like, I'm here to do the right thing and protect the people of this planet. That's all that I care about. And he doesn't have time for all the petty squabbling. Like, he's not going to go before Congress and make a statement. I don't think, like, he doesn't have time for that. Kind of like, because I think that's what in Man of Steel, that's what happened. Or Batman v Superman, that's what happened. Because like this is, it's familiar ground in that sense, but it's articulated in a way where there's actually some genuine humanity behind the lines, and as they're written and delivered. Like you learned so much about both of the characters during that interaction and what their relationship is like. Like behind, like when they're not in the newsroom, it's like what is Lois Lane grappling with? And it's like, oh fuck, like this guy's making a lot of trouble for himself, and for the world. And like, here I am at a vantage point to try and reach him on it. And I'm going to try to, so he can try and understand the consequences of his decisions a little bit. Because, ultimately this movie is about, like how, like who holds Superman accountable, and in a sense, and ultimately it's himself, and maybe it will prove to be in future movies that it's other metahumans like the Authority who hold Superman accountable. I don't know. More than likely, he's going to be trying to hold them accountable, but we'll get to that. But then that brings us to Lex Luthor, this
Yeah.
version of Lex Luthor I fucking loved. Comparing the motivations here, the Jesse Eisenberg version, he was basically just Zuckerberg, who was afraid of an alien invasion and alien subjugation. With metahumans already existing in the world, instead it's like, no, I am better than all of these weirdos in their fancy suits and weird powers. I'm smarter than all of you fuckers. And how dare this alien show up and steal my luster and glory, because I was the one who was going to be basically lording and ruling over the human race with my superiority. It's like the superiority complex of Lex, hasn't been in the movies in a while. And I never watched Smallville that much, so I have no idea what kind of an arc he had in that show. But this interpretation, Nicholas Hoult, like just the glowering that he had going on, and the effect on like all of the people he had in the room with him, like when he knocks that mug during one of his tantrums and like all those pens fall on the floor and like 4 people drop to their knees to pick it up, like that sent me. I was like I thought that was very funny. And just everything else he does, like the locking away his exes in the Phantom Zone, like what the fuck, man.
Yeah, that was great. He was awesome. I mean, I love that, like he spends like 90% of his screen time like in that room, like in that like office, like spaceship thing that eventually turns into a spaceship thing. And it's it's just perfect. I mean, Lex should not be the guy who's getting his hands dirty. Or like he should not be the guy who's getting into like the punching matches, especially this version. I mean, you can do like power suit Lex Luthor, but that's not what this is. And so, yeah, he should just be the guy who's sitting in his office and doing all the stuff behind the scenes, or doing all the stuff, through various other people. And the final scene, I keep going back to that because it's just so perfect when he kind of just lays out, like, here's why I hate you. And he like works himself up so much that he literally starts crying as he's like talking about how much he hates Superman and like his ideal version of the world. And he was really, really great. And I'm glad. Yeah, again, I think now would be a good time to mention. We talked about the interview scene. We talked about how obviously Lois already knows who Superman is. She is, they're already boyfriend girlfriend, and then you also get the sense that Lex too. I mean, Lex already has his fortune. Lex has already been in this world for a long time, and so now would be a good time, I think, to mention the fact that this is not another origin story.
Yeah.
And it's so awesome that it's not, because we've gotten all that stuff before. People should already know the origin story of this character, whether it be through seeking out the previous movies, the comics, or literally just through pop culture osmosis. Like, you should know at this point Superman's origin story, even if you've never sought out Superman, because it's just so popular. And I gotta say, like, I loved the opening like text for this movie where it's like, 3 centuries, 3 decades, or what was it? It was like 30 years, 3 years. Yeah. And so I love that, because that entire text thing in any other movie would have been the first hour of that movie. Like, that entire text thing, that should have been the first hour of this movie. But they're like, nope, get it all out of the way in the first like 2 minutes, and then we're going to move on from there. And so I love that.
You could literally, like, in my head as I was watching it, I was like, this is the first page of a comic book, where you just like have, like, you just have this shot, or like maybe a few panels, with each of those, with the text box for each of those, and then Superman crashing into the ice to punctuate it. It was so effective, and I appreciated the economy, of the storytelling in that way, because we bypassed all the bullshit that everyone says they're tired of. So I just don't like. We'll touch on the criticisms that this movie has gotten from certain sectors, but I just look at like the choices that were made, and I'm like, this is what you fuckers have been asking for years, and now you're acting like it somehow is a detrimental to your enjoyment of the movie. Like, at what point do you just decide that you're never gonna like it, whatever it is, whether it's Superman or Thor or whatever, like the some people just can't be pleased is kind of what, like, the realization I came
Yeah.
to, because this is what we've been waiting for in that sense. Because
Mhm.
in the doc, I didn't say it, but like things just slide together like butter because of that, like, awareness and cultural osmosis. You don't need to have it spelled out for you. You just know it, with this character at this point. And like, I think Gunn he was quoted somewhere saying like, I never want to see a little, like, Superman land in his little baby spaceship in Smallville. I never want to see the pearls getting ripped off of Bruce Wayne's mother in Crime Alley ever again. Like, there are just certain things we don't need anymore. And
Yep.
we likely aren't going to get, like, we didn't need to have the origin story for Guy Gardner. He just had to have a throwaway line being like, that's why the Green Lantern Corps ripped me out and recruited me for this stupid job that I have now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to know where Mr. Terrific came from. But look at the guy. It's clear like how he got where he is. He's just really smart and capable. Hawk Girl, different story. I think people probably were left very confused by Hawk Girl. But then again, we had Hawkman and Shazam, and we really didn't have much of an origin story for him either. Because
Yeah.
the movie, he wasn't his movie, I guess. But I don't know.
Well, yeah. Let's talk about that. What did you make of the side characters? Whether it be any of the ones you already mentioned, or I'm sure, knowing your taste, the one that you were most excited to see was Engineer,
Yeah.
probably. So yeah, what did you think of those characters?
The Justice Gang were wonderful.
Mhm.
The work in progress for their branding, the hint that like they're like the Hall of Justice, like, wasn't original to them. Like, they are a successor group. I get the sense.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm wrong about that, because there's that mural of the old school JSA there, which is
Yep.
crazy,
Mhm.
crazy. But yeah, it's like, instead of having a, multiple Earths, all this stuff happened here, and so the textures and the all of the very subtle world building is great. But those characters I really, really liked. Mr. Terrific steals the fucking movie. I know that some people are pissed off about that, like the nerdrotic crowd, the people who like do all of those, like, their like weekly hate sessions. They're all like, Mr. Terrific should not be stealing the show in Superman's movie. And I'm like, it's doing so much heavy lifting, man. Like, you can't just be a Superman movie, and so I don't know. I embraced an approach they hated. But Mr. Terrific, I never read a comic with Mr. Terrific in it, but now I want to. The and that guy, what's the actor's name again?
It's Eddie Gathegi.
Eddie Gathegi. God bless that
Yeah.
motherfucker. He got so, you were right in the doc. He got fucked over when they killed Darwin off in First Class. He finally gets his flowers. He gets to like have, he carries, a chunk of the movie while, Superman's in prison in the Phantom Zone. And
Mhm.
yeah, the
Yeah, he was great. I mean, his rendition too, because I'm familiar with Mr. Terrific, um, mostly from he's actually really pretty involved in the current Justice League storyline that's going on in the comics currently, and yeah, you can tell he gets it. He understands who this character is. He has this line when he's in his ship with Lois, where she's trying to like she's basically word diarying all of her thoughts out, and he just looks back at her and says like, sorry, I don't really do other people's emotions. And that's like perfect Mr. Terrific thing. And yeah, he was great. And I guess I mean, we've already touched on some of the other ones. I mean, of course you have Guy Gardner, and you mentioned in the doc, his middle finger constructs, and I love how when they go to confront Superman about the video of his
Yeah.
parents, how he blurs the windows when all the
Privacy
people are
wall.
screaming
Yeah.
outside. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome, and that was great. And yeah, I guess like of the ones we haven't already talked about, I mean, there's Metamorpho, which he was fine. I think he was more so they needed a reason to get kryptonite, and then they needed a reason to get him out of his confinement, and so he worked for what they needed him for. I look forward to seeing where that goes more so than what he was in this movie. I think
Yeah.
they could go places with that. And I like Anthony Carrigan too. Anthony Carrigan, of course, was in Barry, one of my favorite shows. And I guess the big one here's the big one. This is sort of the thing that I've seen a lot of people. The thing that a lot of people are letting spoil this movie for them more than anything else is crypto.
Yeah, we've been
So what
burying
do
the
you make
lead
of
here.
crypto?
Like
Yeah.
I see Crypto for what he is. It's this weird fixation that Gunn has where he always needs to like put like some kind of personalization into his movies, whether it's casting his brother or his wife. And then this time it
Yeah.
was just his dog, and at the same time, Crypto's never really gotten to show out like this. So like while I did find it mild, like initially I was like, there's just too much Crypto happening. By the end, it I was warmed up to it and I was down for it. Like when he's like taking out all the drones so that Superman can beat Ultraman properly. It was like, okay, he served a purpose.
Daddy.
Hang on, we're getting there, honey. We're getting there.
Yeah, and Crypt. I thought it was fine too. I didn't think it by no means was enough to ruin the movie for me. I mean, there's a couple times where
10 more.
I personally would have cut a couple of his scenes, like when he sort of roughs up Lex Luthor. That
Yeah.
was probably a little unnecessary, but yeah, he was fine. He was perfectly fine, and I like that.
Good job.
I like where
Okay,
that
finish
leads us, where the crypto storyline leads us, because we find out by the end that crypto is actually Supergirl's dog,
Yeah.
and Supergirl comes back to get her dog. And I love the Supergirl cameo too, because I'm really looking forward to whatever her movie is next year, because that is if people don't know, that's based on a pretty famous Tom King comic at this point called Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and I think they've got the tone down for what she's supposed to
Okay.
be, at least. So
So
yeah, I know you had mentioned in the doc that you were kind of apprehensive about what she was in this at the end of this movie.
so yeah, I just don't have my bearings. Like really
Okay.
my context for Supergirl is from like 52, like that miniseries, like stuff from that
Sure.
era. So it's very a different interpretation. But Millie Alcock looks, I'm sure she'll be fine in it. And they have to do something to get the Brett Summer crowd to want to see a super comic book movie, and she's probably the way to do that. But
Yeah.
just to
Yeah,
touch
she's-
to touch on the engineer a bit,
Yeah.
the it's because and that's another thing that it's not because she's obviously from the Authority, which is a Warren Ellis creation from Wildstorm that is now been put on the production line by Gunn. And this movie in a really strange way sets the stage for the Authority. All of the like the Baravia plot line where Superman's intervening and it's upsetting the leaders of the world, who are more concerned about like defense contracts more than anything when you get down to it. The idea that metahumans, like eventually at some point, even Superman in this movie to an extent, make the call like, no, I know better than all of you elected people. You're all corrupt and like there's a banality of evil going on. So I need to step in, because otherwise you will just do bad things to each other until you wipe all of us out. And because like she's basic, like we don't really know a lot about like how she got into these circumstances. want to know more about that, because in her source material, her like boss was the original engineer. He's the one who created the technology, and she basically just stole it after he died, and then joined Jenny Sparks to make the Authority after Stormwatch is destroyed. And the fact that Stormwatch gets a kind of a reference in here through Lex Luthor's Planet Watch, I thought that was pretty neat. He's kind of the Henry Bendix of this. So this, I got a lot to think about there, but ultimately the moment where in the stadium fight where Clark or Superman has realized that they're just literally following direct orders on what to do, in terms of how they're fighting and everything. He's like, you don't have to listen to Lex. Like, you could do the right thing. Like, he's trying to reach her. And eventually, she obviously gets reached because, like, she doesn't die. You're correct?
Yeah, she's still alive.
Yeah.
The last time we see her, it's after he plummets back to Earth, and then she's unconscious in, like, that subway tunnel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're going to get to see her do some pretty cool things, hopefully. I have no idea what kind of a story they're going to do for their Authority movie, or even which characters we're going to get. Like, it's kind of a crapshoot. They might be plugging in some mainline DC heroes into the Authority for all we know. But I look forward to seeing Jenny Sparks show up into, like, a confrontation with, like, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump analogs, and just being like, we are in charge now, behave, or we're gonna drop a fucking planet on you like we did Gamora. Like, that's because, like, that's like the first story arc of the Authority. Like, that's the conclusion of it. They basically destroy North Korea and then put the whole world on notice that they aren't in charge anymore. We are. And it's so I was in my in my glories, just like thinking about the possibilities, but enjoying how they used her. Like, you showed her powers very well. The whole idea that she just, like, suffocate him with her nanites, that's right out of the comics. She's done that shit so many times to people. So I was like, yeah, do that.
Yeah, that was great. I love that whole little action scene there where they try and suffocate him, and he flies up to, like, basically the outer atmosphere, and that was great. Well, I guess we've done a pretty good job of glazing this movie, and so what did you not like? What did you think didn't work? I'm kind of curious.
All the fucking needle drops to, like, weird punk music that no one's ever heard in their lives before. Did you recognize any of the songs that they used?
Well, the song that he used during, like, the Mr. Terrific, on the beach thing, that's a pretty famous song, I believe.
Okay.
But then everything else was made for this movie, and it was credited to, because there's that band that Superman says he likes. It's like what is it, like the Wailing Crab Trees or something like that.
Yeah.
And what they did is they went and recorded a bunch of original music under a fake band called like if you look during the credits, at the end of the credits, when it says all the music, it says, like, the fake band's name. And so that's what it is. It's basically it's music that was made for this movie. But yes, I agree. I don't understand why James Gunn feels the need to do needle drops in every single one of his movies, and it's typically set to some long take action scene. He did it in all the Guardians movies too, and so it's getting a little played out at this point.
It is, and it was really out of place in this movie. And I guess we should bring it up, because on the top, speaking of music, it's not that the John Williams Superman theme still doesn't make the heart soar. I think they should have just gone in a different direction. But that's the weird melding that's going on, because it's not just the comic book legacy, it's the movie legacy that this character has too. Like, should they try something different, or are we just going to be, I guess, tortured with hearing it forever whenever Superman shows up on screen going forward?
I think so. Yeah, I I had said they could have nipped this in the bud like after the Christopher Reeve Supermans and just, not like stopped using it, but they just like kept using it, and the only sort of respite we got from them using it was Hans Zimmer's score, which was also great. His Superman theme is awesome, and unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever hear that again in a movie. But yeah, it's just too at this point, it's too iconic. I think people will complain if they do hear it, and people will complain if they don't hear it. That's kind of the point at which we're at with that. And yeah, but they probably should have. Otherwise, I mean, the rest of the score is pretty unmemorable, and so I don't know if that's just a side effect of trying to craft a score next to something like John Williams and just looking bad in comparison. But
Yeah.
it was pretty unmemorable otherwise. Like any of the stuff that wasn't like the Williams remixes and stuff. But
Yeah, because like the
yeah, I mean,
electric guitar, that was, I liked that. Like I liked the
mhm,
texture of that. It gave something, different to it, but we needed something different. And like they were so confident everywhere else. Like it bothered me that they weren't confident with the music to try and give us
mhm,
something different.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
gotta say, I one of the things that while we're talking about stuff that didn't really work, one of the things that didn't work for me was the like, and I just was like thinking about this. I thought about this just like last night that the Kents were fine, but they're just like portrayed a little bit too like rednecky in this, where it's like, whoa, man, your accent is like straight out of like the backwoods of like moonshine country West Virginia.
yeah,
This is not Kansas. This is not a Kansas accent. Like this is, and they're just like, I don't know, just like the way that they were, like some of their dialogue too was just a little like, Pa Kent has that dialogue. He's like, "Me and Ma went to the burrito place,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
burritos are still, it's just a little too quaint, a little too like." I did appreciate, as I mentioned earlier, the earnestness of this movie, but there are certain things that it's like, okay, you could have dialed it back a little bit, like with that, and the couple of times that Superman says like gosh, I think, or like he says, oh, instead of saying what the hell, he says what the hey, I
yeah,
think, at one
yeah.
point, and I'm like, okay, this is a little too, quaint for me. Like you can have Superman say hell, like he's not that much of a Boy Scout, and so that kind of got my druthers up a bit, but yeah. Anything else you wanted to mention as
Well,
far as
on the Mon Pa Kent note, there's no
yeah.
way like, I guess that they were always kind of an older couple, and maybe like I'm just they may I'm, like expecting them to be younger because I watched Smallville a little bit, but not a
Mm.
lot. But like, or even just like Kevin Costner, like these two seemed like they were at least 15 years older than Diane Lane and Kevin Costner and Man of Steel were. You know,
Mhm.
like they are way too old to be running a farm on their own. Like Pa can't handle a herd of cows, like let alone, like everything else that they have going on their farm. At this point, they'd be renting or selling their land and just retiring, like, but then again, maybe they can get a lot of help from Clark so they can keep the operation going as long as necessary. But that was their portrayal was the reminder that James Gunn is a creature of the city, and I don't think he's
Yeah.
ever been, outside of Los Angeles or New York City for any reason. But then again, I guess
Mhm.
apparently they shot this movie in Atlanta, a lot of
Okay.
it, and a friend of Angie's is a realtor to the stars in Atlanta,
Hmm.
and he made a post being like at the theater being like, it was so great to see all the people that I worked with in this movie, without like specifying who. But I thought
Okay.
like that's
Sure.
some neat little personal trivia that we have going
Yeah,
on.
it's awesome.
But yeah, I guess ultimate verdict, like this is what we've been waiting for. And I just want to, yeah, because we have a whole section just on drama mongering. I don't know how much we really want to get into that, but like the weird
Well,
like Rick and
here's what I'll
Morty.
say.
Okay, yeah, go.
Yeah, here's what I'll say about it is when I look at all of these things that, in the lead up to this movie, there was all these rumors of bad test screenings and like the Snyderverse subreddit was going to like do everything they could to tank the movie, and there was like this rumor that the movie needed to make a very specific $700 million in order to be considered a success, and all this stuff. And I would say, out of all of that stuff that was said about this, I think the only thing that anybody at this point, now that the movie's out, now that we've seen it, the only thing that people really have any leg to stand on is the film's politics. And I think you'd have to be an idiot not to get the Palestine Israel
Ukraine, Russia.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd have to be an idiot not to compare those things with the Baravia Jarhanpur stuff. And so, but that said, I don't think people think that just because that exists, just because the movie is political, that makes it bad. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I don't necessarily agree with it. You don't have to agree with it in order to think, something doesn't have to align with your personal politics in order for it to be well executed in a movie. And so I just don't think I don't know. I don't think that this movie's any worse just because those scenes exist, is what I'm saying. And so that's kind of all I really have to say on the drama stuff. But yeah, what about you?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It's very well said. Because what occurred to me is that, like, I was thinking about so many other things. I wasn't thinking about our world. Like, because of the political references, I was thinking about their implications within this movie. And I think because the people who bitch and moan about politics, infecting, art and media, they are the first ones to fixate on it. And like, you are allowing that. Yeah, if people are really ham-fisted about it or obnoxious about it, it could ruin anybody's experience. But they're just kind of drama brained, some certain people. Like they are almost deliberately sabotaging their enjoyment because that stuff is there. It would be dishonest not to explore those, because they're like, those things happening in the real life are directly related to this character and what he would mean in our reality. Like, you have to ask these questions and explore it a little bit, and to like act like the whole thing is ruined because of it. Well, you suck then, I guess. Like, there's no other way to say it. It's like, you can't be helped. It's like, either it has, whether or not because some people, they may not even agree or disagree with the politics. They just are alienated by its presence. And
yep.
This is the wrong movie to get your knickers in a twist about, because it explores so much beyond what is happening in our real world. It's not trying to prescribe something. I know James Gunn made his statement about immigration, and that's a hot topic issue. And that's the ancillary part of the problem. Is that people are going to take a lot of issue, with someone who's made something being political. That's going on with Fantastic Four and Pedro Pascal right now. Very cool. One of the many squishmallows in our home. But yeah, the whole, I watched like the neurotic stream that he did with like all of that cohort, like Mahler and all the anti-Star Wars fans that exist there, and all of their quibbles and frustrate, like everything they were bitching about were things I loved. So I don't know, like, I guess I'm now realizing that I don't have a lot of common in my perspective with that crowd anymore, because they, outside of like admitting that Andor was a good show, they can't bring themselves to, overcome that bullshit and like something. Like so I don't think that people should listen to that kind of rhetoric going forward. You are just feeding a complex. Because, yeah, everyone wants to talk about bad test screenings. You know, like Chris Gore wants to tease you with, oh, this is what my insider friend said. You know, like, and there's things to worry about. It's like, just go back to purity before YouTube. I know, like, here we are. Like, I'm telling you to just watch shit and not depend on an outside voice to, like, validate your choice. Make your own goddamn choices, people. We just encourage you that this is a good one. This is one worth seeing.
Yeah. I mean, just understand. I mean, at this point, I think people are good, or at least getting better at understanding. I mean, when you're watching something, like a drama channel or something like that, or even a podcast where you think the hosts generally have negative opinions on things. I mean, really ask yourself, is the person that I am listening to or watching right now making money off this? And if the answer is yes, then understand something. Understand that this is probably a manufactured opinion to make said money off of you, to make the viewer. And so um, being positive on things unfortunately doesn't make nearly as much money. And being positive on things unfortunately doesn't drive views as much as being negative on things. And so, I mean, really ask yourself when you're watching these things, because it's okay to consume this type of stuff, but to let it sort of mold your opinion, that's where you kind of have to put the kibosh on it.
Yeah, it's the yin to the yang of the bought out, overly positive. You know, like get excited for next new thing. You know, like they're both a problem, and you know you're better off just being attracted to certain things based on promotional material or your own existing interest, giving it a shot. If it's a dud, it's a dud. We all had to go through watching Green Lantern starring Ryan Reynolds at one point so that we could wind up here with like the first successful Green Lantern live action interpretation ever. And that is a success in and of itself. All right, moving on to the watch list here. You got some Superman recommendations.
Yeah, I switched out my watch or my mentionable at the last second. Just in light of today's featured review, I want to give some curated comic recommendations. Because I don't know if there's one particular comic that captures the feeling of James Gunn's movie, but I think that these three comics I'm going to mention they specifically are for people that liked certain elements of this movie. And so to start, if you liked the sort of episodic short-term timeline of the Superman movie, then go check out Max Landis's Superman American Alien, because it's very similarly structured. It's kind of like 7 short stories that are in kind of a contained timeline. If you liked the sort of political background storyline going on in Superman with the war in Jarhanpur, then go check out Superman the War World Saga by Philip Kennedy Johnson and Riccardo Federici, because that kind of has the same sort of political elements in the background of Superman sort of debating on whether or not he should help a group of people. In the comics case, it's more so a planet of people rather than a nation of people. And then if you liked the abundance of side characters, and if you want to just dive right into the deep end of the pool, then check out Grant Morrison and Mikel Janin's Superman and the Authority comic, because that's going to get you all these really awesome side characters, these lesser known characters, and that's going to get you like the sort of galaxy brained comic book writing that, like I said, if you want to jump into the deep end of the pool, that'll get you. And so, those are my recs for fans of this movie.
The only one I've read was Superman and the Authority, but I'm really interested in the War World saga. That sounds intriguing based on what I've seen for it. My mentionable this week, we have the final early access update for Hades 2, which means that all the rest of you who haven't been like Matt, who haven't been playing the early access of this sequel, to Hades will
Time's up.
soon get to experience the full and final game. I'm still not quite there yet. They're still just adding quality of life changes. There's more artwork, for certain characters you encounter. They've amped up the danger, because there's these modes you can activate now where like all the bosses have like new conditions built into it or new abilities or circumstances you have to deal with. So that it's just a reminder of just all of the different things that they've done to expand off the original and just give you like 3 times the content. And they haven't even unlocked everything because like there's overworld and an underworld with a final boss at the end of each, and after you beat them, instead of like getting that like after fight, because like in the original you'd get to the top and you'd get to meet your mother, Persephone.
Yeah.
And as soon as you walk through the door, it stops. And you just go back to like the hub, let like the hub screen, to like do your next run. But now, like at this point you can now bang, like you can develop relationships with all the characters so that they'll all want to sleep with you, which I guess for certain people is like a part of the game they really care about. But they also added new aspects to all the weapons, which makes it all the more interesting because they really rejigger them. Like some of them are unrecognizable in terms of like what you're used to them being able to do. All I know is that it should be soon that the game goes 1.0, and it'll be exclusive on consoles to the Switch 2. But if you have a PC, of course you can buy it off Steam or what have you. But if you're an Xbox or a PlayStation person, you are out of luck for now. But get excited for Hades. We are Hades 2. We're nearly there.
Yeah, I can't wait. I been rubbing my hands together when I saw that they had said this was the final update. I've been sort of patiently waiting, and so yeah, I can't wait. And I guess I'm gonna have to get a Switch too because or a Steam Deck or something because I was always like, to me this is the type of game. This is the type of game that feels like a handheld game to me. It's kind of that. So I'm gonna have to get a Switch because I had the first game on Switch 1, and so I'm gonna have to get my hands on a Switch 2 or something similar.
Well, let me tell you, you can get a LCD Steam Deck for way cheaper than a Switch 2, but then again, you won't be able to do the things that a Switch 2 can do. But just like in terms of the new content that's going to be coming out. Metroid Prime 4, man. I mean, I would buy a Switch 2 to play that. But yeah, no, like because I've played it on my PC and on Steam Deck and on handheld. It is just perfect for that. You're right. It almost plays better than when you're playing it on like a computer monitor or a TV for some reason. It's because I don't know, like because I find my eye getting too attracted to the eye candy. When it's on a bigger screen, I notice things that like, oh, they've added an animation there, and then I get wiped by an enemy because I'm not paying attention. But yeah, because it's not a battery hog. Like at least on the Steam Deck, I can play for like 6 hours, before having to plug it in on a full charge if I'm just playing Hades 2, which is crazy, considering how like Cyberpunk, I'm lucky if it lasts an hour and a half, for example. But
yeah,
really excited for this. Everybody should
same.
be. It's worth the money, and it's not AAA slop. But what is also not slop is Superman. This is not cape shit. This is a comic book movie after my own heart, and I'm so glad we got to talk about it. And it took up the bulk of the show. I think we spent an hour just on Superman, which is pretty crazy. But thanks for joining me, Matt, and we'll see you all next week not next week, 2 weeks from now, when we review, hopefully, Eddington. We'll have to see what happens.
See ya.
Take care.